Hi there everyone. Today we're going to look at a microeconomics free response question from 2016. It's question number 3, FRQ number 3. This is a question that requires you to be able to identify the market type in which a business, a firm, is operating. So by reading the description in the question stem, you have to determine what kind of market this business is operating in. So since this is a introductory lesson for international students who are also learning English, we're going to look at the vocabulary first. So let's read through these questions, and as we go through, let's look at the different vocabulary that may or may not be new. So the question stem tells us Camden's Cakery. So a cakery, I guess, is some kind of cake shop, cafe. So Camden's Cakery is one of many dessert cafes serving a local community. Notice how dessert is spelled. It's not desert, it's dessert. Each cafe produces a slightly differentiated product. So differentiated, you will remember, means different, not the same as. So Nike runners are not the same as Adidas. An iPhone is different from a Samsung phone, and so on. There are no barriers to entry or exit. Okay, barriers means something that makes it difficult to get into a market or leave that market. Could be regulations, economies of scale, or something else. If you've studied the Porter's 5 forces in a business class, you'll be familiar with this idea as well. So there's no barriers to entry or exit, so that should give you some clue what kind of market we're looking at. And the firm is in long-run equilibrium. So you can guess that this question is going to be related to the long-run time frame. So this question stem now gives us a clear idea of what market type this business is operating in. As soon as you see the word slightly differentiated product, you know it has to be monopolistic competition. The additional detail that there's no barriers to entry or exit reinforces that idea. Okay, so that's our question stem. Now let's have a quick look at the other question parts and see if there's any vocabulary there that's worth discussing. So part A, we're going to have to draw a correctly labeled graph showing Camden's demand curve. So we know it's going to be downward sloping because it's a monopolistically competitive firm. Marginal revenue curve. Okay, remember marginal just means incremental, or like the next unit, the next step. So the marginal revenue curve, marginal cost curve, long run average total cost curve. So ATC, long run average total cost. Remember, your total cost includes your variable, which change with output, and your fixed, which do not. Okay, so you add them together, you get total cost, and when you divide them by the number of units, you get the average total cost. Label Camden's profit maximizing output QM and its price PM. So profit maximizing means where does this firm obtain the greatest possible profit, the biggest profit? And as soon as you see that, you probably know the answer. On your graph from this same part A, label the output at which total revenue is maximized, QR. So you're going to call it QR. So notice it asks here about total revenue, not total profit. Important detail, you got to read these questions really carefully. I know a lot of students get this part wrong. They read it quickly and they answer incorrectly. Part C, do firms, remember firm just means business or company, in this market experience economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, or neither, so constant return to scale, in long-run equilibrium? Explain. So economies of scale, you'll remember, is when you have falling average total cost as your output increases. Diseconomies is just the opposite, rising ATC as your output increases. Neither would be constant returns to scale. Okay, we'll explain this later. So those are the key words, I think, in this question here. So let's go and try to answer the first part, part A. So I'll draw a graph of this monopolistically competitive firm. So this is what your graph should look like, something hopefully a little bit neater than mine, but basically containing this information for the first part of the question, part A. So we need to have our demand curve. So it's going to be downward sloping because this is a monopolistically competitive firm. Like a monopoly, it has a downward sloping demand curve. That means you don't need this for the question, but it means that it actually has some market power. So it's not 100% a price taker. Remember, it's differentiated. It's somehow different from the other cafes in this market. So downward sloping demand curve. Your marginal revenue curve is also going to be downward sloping between the demand curve and the y-axis. So far it looks basically the same as a monopoly. Now, we're going to add the marginal cost curve. That's the purple line here, and our long run average total cost curve, or ATC, LRATC. Now this long run average total cost curve has to touch or run tangent, we say. Sometimes we say kiss the demand curve. So it's tangential at that point. And how do we know that where that point is? Well, we're going to follow our profit maximizing quantity, and that is at where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, okay, like in other markets. So we just find the point at which marginal revenue, marginal cost cross each other. We follow that up to the demand curve. We go across. That gives us our PM, which is our profit maximizing price. Okay, so we just follow this dotted line all the way up to here. QM for the mark for the output, PM for the price. And that completes part A. Now, before we go on to part B, it's worth noting that because the question tells us we're in long-run equilibrium, long-run average total cost is going to equal price. So that means there's zero positive economic profit here. Question doesn't ask us about that, but it's worth remembering. So for part B, we need to figure out what is the output where total revenue is maximized. Where do we get the biggest, the most total revenue? Okay, well remember, marginal means incremental, the next unit of something. So in this case, marginal revenue, when it crosses the x-axis, is maximized. So that means as you move down here, you're increasing total revenue all the way. Doesn't mean you're profit maximizing after this point. We profit maximize where MC equals MR, but we're still increasing total revenue. It's just that our marginal costs are also increasing after QM. So at the point at which marginal revenue crosses the x-axis, where Q equals QR, according to the question, that is the point where total revenue is maximized. Now looking at part C, does this firm, do they experience economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, or neither in the long run? So we know this firm is in equilibrium right here. It's on the downward sloping part of the long run average total cost curve. So that means that costs of production are falling. So that is the definition of an economy of scale here. Another thing worth remembering is that the reason why this monopolistically competitive firm is not able to have positive economic profits where price is greater than average total cost in the long run. In the short run, that might be possible, but in the long run, because of what they told us in the question stem, we've got no barriers to exit or entry. So that means other companies can enter if this firm is earning a positive economic profit, or they can exit if firms are losing money, if the price is below average total cost. So So that's it for this question. It's a relatively short question. I think the total score is 6 points. And I think if you look at it from the perspective of how can you relate this to other markets, well, you'll notice that the LRATC right here, at our profit maximizing quantity, we're not at the bottom there. Okay, so we're not like a perfectly competitive market. And unlike a monopoly, we're not able to make positive economic profits in the long run because there's not that much market power. There's free entry and exit into the market. So that's it. I hope that was useful. Be sure to review that vocabulary. And next time we'll look at a different market type. Have a good weekend.